All of this was brought upon us in a single day, and night fell on a different world, a world where freedom itself is under attack.
Wherever we're from, whatever our background, whatever our religion, there are things we share together. We're all British. We respect democracy and the rule of law. We believe in freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of worship, equal rights regardless of race, sex, sexuality, or faith. We believe in respecting different faiths, but also expecting those faiths to support the British way of life.
In the 20 years since its landmark report on Islamophobia, the Runnymede Trust noted that Muslims have become a greater focus of policymakers in the UK and around the world, but framed largely in terms of terrorism or as a civilization threat. The framing of Muslims is, of course, centuries old, but has re-emerged in new and toxic ways. Such framings have created an increasingly Islamophobic environment that perpetuates damaging stereotypes of Muslims, leading to discrimination and enables anti-Muslim sentiment to be overtly expressed.
In my view, Islamism, both the ideology and the violence, is a first-order security threat, and unchecked, it will come to us, even if centered far from us, as 9/11 demonstrated.
What we set out to do in this project is to document the ruins of the war on terror that Muslims are faced with. The ongoing securitisation and criminalisation of Muslims in Britain shows that the war on terror's front lines have expanded and are pushed out into our everyday spaces. And what was once considered exceptional measures to manage terrorism is increasingly becoming normalised and couched within safeguarding. No longer are we in a state of exception, but a state of normalisation. Of course, the discrimination experienced by racialised communities through surveillance and securitisation predates the war on terror, but the war cemented the idea that Muslims and Islam were security threats in need of regulation. The language and practices of counterterrorism are now global and are used by nation-states in the global north and south to justify their continued repression of marginalised groups. This is a crucial point, as despite this project focusing on the experience of Muslims in Britain, counterterrorism practices are widespread and are changing how Muslims are conceptualised. When thinking about the securitisation of Muslims, this project thinks geographically by locating Islamophobia primarily related to terrorism in spaces such as schools, healthcare sectors, prisons, and the home. Attention is given to the Prevent Duty, which was introduced in public sectors on a statutory footing in 2015 and required frontline workers in educational settings, healthcare and prisons to report individuals for signs of extremism and radicalisation. As you go through the chapters, you'll be reminded of the shocking ways in which measures like Prevent and the continuous framing of Muslims as terrorists create stifling conditions for those racialised as Muslims, who are viewed by their colleagues and those in authority through a suspicious lens. The primary aim of this project is to continue conversations on how Muslims in Britain are securitised through counter-terrorism legislation and beyond. As Muslims continue to feel the haunting presence and legacies of the war on terror, this is a step to recognise how pervasive securitisation is for racialised groups.